All right. Can you hear me? Yes, that's all right. We don't need that thing then. That's okay. First of all, thanks for coming. As you know, this is a Brian's scholarship function, not a St Manston function. But I'm delighted that you're here to support it because it's an incredibly worthwhile cause. We've got to raise the money see the money raised for the young lady who's going to be next year's scholar. So thank you for playing your part in helping that to happen. Life is very frustrating, isn't it? Politically, it's a nightmare at the moment. But there are so many things happening on so many fronts. And I feel like a rather bad juggler trying to keep doing the balls in the air. But aside from the obvious national stuff that's going on, at the Manston level, it doesn't actually astonish me in the slightest that the press only has time for bad news. Some of you may have seen Paul Francis's piece in the Extra this week with a wildly misleading headline, I have to say. Now, to be fair, Paul, he doesn't write the headline, some editor does that. But, the minutes of the planning inspectorate meeting with River Oak are both accurate and fair. The only problem is that Mr. Francis either didn't read them to the end, or he reported them selectively. There is a process, and we explained this to those who were present last time, that has to be gone through. The planning inspectorate cannot talk to an applicant about a live application, which is why the application had to be withdrawn, so that various issues could be discussed. They were discussed at great length. Planning inspectorate made its case. River Oak made their case. I wasn't present at the meeting, but I've read the minutes, like anybody else has the opportunity to, because they're all published. And, I mean, to be frank, there are things that I think the planning inspectorate are asking for at this stage that ordinarily would be asked for as part of an examination, once the project has been accepted for examination. But that doesn't matter, because the information has to be provided at some point. It's tiresome that in order to get to where we are, the application had to be withdrawn. River Oak will be meeting, I know the date, but I'm not going to give it to you, with the planning inspectorate again in reasonably short order. After that, the expectation is that the DCO application will go back in, and then it's a question of the inspectorate either accepting it for examination or turning it down. And if they turn it down, it's bye-bye Roger Gale. And I go off into the sunset, where Bo is at the moment. And I hope, obviously, very much that won't happen. But there's a lot of positive news. Those of you who pay attention to these things, which is, for very good reason, probably not most of you, may have picked up on Chris Grayling's statement about London Heathrow and the third runway, which was made in the House of Commons on Tuesday. Beg his pardon. There was then a Westminster Hall debate on the Transport Select Committee's report on what is called the National Planning Strategy, which is the Heathrow third runway. That took place on Thursday. In his statement to the House on Tuesday, Chris Grayling made the case for the third runway, explained why it was going to go ahead, and then said it won't happen overnight. Well, clearly, that's blindingly obvious. It won't happen overnight. Now, there's a difference of opinion between the government and me on this. The government optimistically is saying 8 years. I'm not saying 80. But I did say in the debate on Thursday, I would bet a golden guinea that it won't be inside 15 years. Well, any advance on 20 years, fine. But, 15 is realistic. 20 is probably more likely, if we're honest. But there's a hell of a lot of work that's got to be done. All the processes, in fact, that River Oak is having to go through have got to be gone through. Development consent order, lots of hearings, public examination, objections, and there are lots of them. And all that's got to happen before a spade hits a piece of earth. So it's a long way down the line. And what Chris said to the House was very clear, and I was delighted that he said it. It was very honest. He said, we've got to get from A to B. It's going to take time. So in between, this was exactly his phrase, we have to use all the available runway capacity. Out there is one of the best runways in the country. And when I asked him, and I had to be very careful, so I questioned him when he made his statement, and said, look, I don't want to compromise you over any decision you may have to take in the future. But is it not a fact that we need to use all of the available airports and airport capacity in Kent? I deliberately didn't say Manston. And Chris, understanding the sensitivity of the legal position exactly as I do, of course, said he was looking forward to any proposals that we had to bring forward. People have said to me, why isn't the Secretary of State, why isn't the government coming out in favour of Manston? Why aren't they supporting us? You know, the answer is they can't, legally, because there is a process in train. I made the same case in the debate in Westminster Hall on Thursday, which was actually about Heathrow, but I was able to pick up on the Secretary of State's remarks and throw them back at him, or to be more exact, at Jesse Norman, his minister, the junior minister, who is in a position to be rather more overt than Chris is himself. There are huge implications for Heathrow to runway 3, Northwest 3 as it's called, and HS2 in what happens with this application. Which is why I think it's actually all very much in the national interest. Now, as I said, it is intensely frustrating for those of you who want to get on with this. Believe me, it's intensely frustrating for me and Craig McKinley and Bob Bayford. And it's also intensely frustrating, of course, for River Road, who just want to get on and do the job. But the meeting we had at the House of Commons, the breakfast briefing a few weeks back, was very successful indeed. Significant number of members of Parliament of all parties, including a number of members of the Transport Select Committee, bothered to turn up. Chairman of the Transport Select Committee, his Labour colleague, turned up. A number of members of the Greater London Assembly came. The investors, these people who don't exist, that Paul Francis doesn't seem to recognise, but haven't, you know, just put £7 million, north of £7 million into the project already. They turned up. You know, they weren't ghosts. We actually saw them. We were able to shake hands with them, and it was very, very positive. Now, Bob Bayford and the local authority do have a tricky situation. As you know, they took over control of the council relatively recently, and in short order, they've got to produce, because the Secretary of State's told them they've got to produce, a local plan. And if they don't produce it, it'll be taken out of their hands, and either government or another authority will do it. And that's the last thing we want. That inevitably has meant some haste in terms of outlining pieces of land available for housing, which will probably never be built on, but it has to be done, because those numbers have to be made up. It's not easy. There are long-term solutions that I'm working on, and that others are working on, that we think are realistic. But unfortunately, we can't put those together in time for this local plan. So the local plan is probably not going to be as you or even I might like it to be in its entirety, and certainly probably not how Bob would like it to be if he had a free hand. But that is the start of a process. That plan then has to go out to examination itself. It will be subject to public consultation. It can be fine-tuned, it can be changed. Representations can be made to the planning inspector, and if situations change within the timescale, then the plan can be altered. It's not set in concrete on the day that it's published. So you will hear brouhaha. You will hear from the leader of the opposition in Thanet, for example, who writes the same article every fortnight, in a way that I could never get away with when I write articles, but he writes the same article every fortnight. You will hear that no progress has been made and we're all going backwards and nothing's happened when the local plan is published. Well, just accept that that is political
rubbish
posture. Well, you said rubbish. I said posturing. I'm more polite. It's not going to be easy. but these things aren't. What I do believe is that it is not only worthwhile in the local interest, not only do I believe that this is the way that, the only way that we can really take Thanet forward, but I also believe, in the light of what the Secretary of State has underscored this week, that it's actually in the national interest. We have got to get from here to a third runway at Heathrow, and very possibly another runway at Gatwick as well, if we're going to survive and prosper as a trading nation post-Brexit. And that's what this is about. We can't waste this national asset that's on our doorstep. We have to take it, use it, turn it around as fast as we can. Because we don't need it tomorrow, we need it today, actually. We are losing business. I've said this to you before, but we're losing business hand over fist to Schiphol, Frankfurt, Charles de Gaulle, and to Dubai. And that's happening now. Now, the quicker we can get this back on stream, handling freight and then passengers, the more we can stem that loss of business while Heathrow Terminal 3 takes over. And just for the record, for those who are saying, oh yes, well now he's announced Terminal 3, of course, there's no case for Manston. That is rubbish. It's not either or, it's both. We need both. And the fastest delivery has to be on Manston. So I believe that there is a very, very strong national case, as well as the local case. Just on the other side, you will have heard, you may have seen, that the current owners of the land have been talking to Homes England, which is government quango. Now, I am trying to bottom that out, but what I did notice from the press release that was put out was that there was not a single quote from Homes England in it. In other words, the words were not coming from them, they were coming from the owners of the site. But what I do know, and what David Steve's not here, is he? No. What David has put in a very thoughtful objection to the planning applications. David is one of the few people in Thanet probably who knows literally where the bodies are buried on Manston. And also where a lot of other nasties are buried. The idea that you can take that site and turn it into a housing estate is complete pie in the sky. There are so many environmental objections, archaeological objections, and practical environmental objections to it, that it will take from hell to breakfast for it to happen. So, do we have an option? No, we don't. It's a straightforward process. We have to make sure that we get this right, that River Oaks succeeds, we get the airport open. I remain utterly confident that we can achieve that, and I think with a fair wind we will achieve it. Thank you very much indeed.